Right now, underneath the hood of your car, there is a strip of rubber and fiber moving at thousands of revolutions per minute, and it is the single most catastrophically underestimated component in your entire engine. It is called the Cambelt, or timing belt if you're in the States, and when it fails, it does not fail quietly. It fails violently without warning, and the average repair bill that follows sits somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. Mechanics across the country know exactly how to prevent this from ever happening, and for decades, they have said nothing. Because right now, for under $3, there's a spray that stops Cambelt squealing permanently, prevents premature wear, and extends the belt's lifespan by years. The industry has known about it since 1957. The automotive repair industry generates over $150 billion annually in the United States alone. In the United Kingdom, British drivers spend an estimated £6 billion every single year on vehicle servicing and repairs. And buried somewhere inside those enormous figures is one of the most quietly protected secrets in the entire trade. When a Cambelt begins to squeal, that sound is not random. It is a mechanical distress signal. Friction, tension misalignment, or rubber degradation, and a trained mechanic hears it and immediately recognizes what it means. They will book you in. They will quote you anywhere from $300 to over $1,000 for a timing belt replacement, a water pump, and tensioner pulleys as a package. They call it a service interval. What they do not tell you is that in a significant number of cases, that squeal can be stopped and the belt's life extended considerably with a product that costs less than a cup of coffee. You have been systematically robbed. And that changes today. By the time this is finished, you will understand exactly why your Cambelt squeals, what the mechanical and chemical cause of that squeal actually is, and the precise method that stops it permanently. You will know where to buy it, what it costs, and how to apply it yourself in under 10 minutes without opening the engine. You will also understand the one mistake that almost every person makes when they first attempt this. A mistake that makes the fix fail within 48 hours and sends them straight back to the mechanic. And I'll show you something even more significant before we're done. A secondary benefit to this spray that almost nobody in the DIY automotive world has ever connected to Cambelt maintenance. Stay with me. The story of this solution does not begin in a backyard garage or on a forum thread. It begins in 1957, inside the research and development laboratories of industrial lubrication science in post-war America. Engineers working on factory conveyor systems and high-tension drive belts were dealing with a persistent problem. Rubber composite belts running on metal pulleys under sustained high-speed tension would begin to vibrate, chirp, and squeal as surface friction varied with temperature and humidity changes. The solution they landed on was a precisely formulated belt dressing compound, a penetrating blend of resins, conditioners, and friction modifiers that could be applied externally to a running belt and would immediately restore the microfilm of adhesion between belt and pulley surface, eliminating vibration-induced noise and simultaneously conditioning the rubber to slow its degradation. It worked. It worked exceptionally well. By the early 1960s, it was in widespread use across American industrial operations. Factories, agricultural equipment, HVAC systems, and yes, early automotive auxiliary belts. Then something happened. As the automotive industry transitioned through the 1970s and 1980s, as service intervals became profit centers rather than engineering recommendations, and as independent garages began building business models around component replacement rather than maintenance, this compound quietly vanished from mainstream automotive advice. It did not disappear from hardware stores. It did not disappear from industrial supply catalogs. It simply stopped being mentioned in the context that mattered most to ordinary car owners. The industry had every reason to keep it quiet. A $3 product that eliminated the most audible warning sign that triggers a timing belt replacement is not good for business. What followed was decades of unnecessary replacements, inflated service packages, and millions of drivers convinced there was no alternative to handing over hundreds of dollars the moment their engine began to sing. What I'm about to show you is the part the industry spent decades making sure you'd never find out. Because once you understand exactly how this works at a chemical level, you will never hear a squealing belt the same way again. Most people stop here. Don't. The product is belt dressing spray. You will find it under several brand names. The most widely available in the United States is WD-40 Specialist Belt Dressing, and in the UK it is available under the same brand, as well as from outlets including Halfords and most motor factors under their own label equivalents. Do not confuse this with standard WD-40 lubricant. That is a different formulation entirely, and will damage rubber over time. Belt dressing is specifically engineered for rubber composite belts on metal pulleys. And here is the science in plain terms. When a Cambelt or auxiliary drive belt begins to squeal, it is because the coefficient of friction between the belt surface and the pulley surface has become uneven. Temperature fluctuation causes the rubber to micro-harden or micro-expand. Contamination from oil mist, coolant vapor, or simply aged rubber losing its surface? Tackiness creates inconsistent contact. The belt begins to slip, microscopically, invisibly, and that slip generates vibration at a frequency your ears detect as a squeal or chirp. Belt dressing spray penetrates the surface fibers of the rubber, deposits a flexible resin film, and restores uniform surface friction across the entire contact area. The slip stops, the vibration stops, the sound stops. And critically, the conditioners in the formula slow the oxidative degradation of the rubber itself. And this is where it gets interesting, because the application method is everything. Getting this wrong is exactly the mistake that sends people back to the mechanic. Step 1, identify the source of the squeal before you open the hood. Start the engine cold and listen carefully. A Cambelt, which runs inside a sealed cover on most modern engines, will typically produce a higher-pitched whistle or chirp on cold starts that fades as the engine warms. An auxiliary belt, which is external and visible, will often squeal more persistently across temperatures. This distinction matters because the application method differs between the two. Step 2, for external auxiliary belts. Your alternator belt, power steering belt, air conditioning belt. The engine can be running when you apply. Hold the spray nozzle approximately 6 to 8 inches from the belt surface. Apply a 1-second burst to the inner, ribbed face of the belt while it is moving. Do not saturate it. Do not spray the pulleys directly. 1 burst. Then wait 30 seconds and listen. Step 3. For a Cambelt inside a timing cover, the process requires the engine to be off. You will locate the inspection port or carefully remove the upper section of the timing cover if your vehicle's design allows access. Apply the spray to the belt surface. Rotate the engine by hand, using a wrench on the crankshaft bolt to ensure even distribution, then refit the cover before starting the engine. Step 4, and this is the critical warning, never apply belt dressing to a belt that is visibly cracked, fraying at the edges, or showing glazing across more than 30% of its surface. In this condition, the belt is already structurally compromised. No spray will save it. This is where the treatment ends and the replacement begins, and any honest mechanic would tell you the same. The spray is preventative and corrective for early-stage noise. It is not a substitute for a genuinely failing belt. Know the difference. Step 5. After application, take the vehicle for a 15-minute drive to allow the compound to cure under operating heat. The sound should reduce or disappear entirely within the first 3 minutes. Before this is wrapped up, there is one more thing about belt dressing that almost nobody in the automotive community connects to what we have been discussing. Most people who discover this product use it purely for noise elimination. What they do not realize is that the conditioning agents in the spray have a measurable effect on belt flexibility across temperature ranges. In cold climates, and this matters enormously in northern US states, Canada, and the UK through winter, rubber belts become significantly more brittle below zero. Cold starts in January and February are statistically when Cambelt failures spike, because the rubber has contracted and stiffened overnight, and the initial cranking puts enormous strain on a component that has lost its pliability. Applying belt dressing in late autumn, before the cold sets in, creates a protective surface layer that resists this cold brittleness. It is, in effect, a winter conditioning treatment for your engine's most critical rubber component, and it costs $3. Consider what this looks like in real numbers. The average timing belt replacement in the United States costs between $400 and $1,000 at an independent garage, and up to $1,500 at a dealership. In the United Kingdom, the equivalent service typically runs between 250 and 800 pounds, depending on vehicle type, and whether the water pump and tensioner are included. A can of belt dressing spray costs between $2 and $4, or 1 to 3 pounds in the UK, and one contains enough for multiple applications over a full year of maintenance. If this spray extends your Cambelt's service life by even one additional service interval, typically 30,000 miles or 3 years, you have saved yourself a minimum of $400 in a single application. If it prevents a catastrophic failure, the numbers become incomprehensible. An engine that throws a timing belt at high speed can suffer bent valves, damaged pistons, and a destroyed cylinder head. We are talking about repair bills that exceed the value of the vehicle itself. Thousands of drivers have written off otherwise functional cars because of a component failure that cost under $3 to prevent. Compare this to the old approach, the approach the industry still defaults to. You hear a squeal, you book it in. The mechanic inspects it, recommends a belt service package, and 2 weeks later you are $400 to $800 lighter, driving home in a car that will begin the same degradation cycle within months. The belt replacement did not address the underlying environmental and friction conditions that caused the noise in the first place. The dressing does. It addresses the cause, not just the symptom. Now you understand what they kept quiet, and you understand why. The Cambelt dressing solution is real. It is documented in industrial engineering literature. It is available in hardware stores across America and motor factors throughout the UK. And it has been commercially suppressed from mainstream automotive maintenance advice for the better part of 60 years. because the alternative, doing nothing and waiting for the replacement interval, is worth billions of dollars annually to the service industry. But here's something that will stay with you after this. The Cambelt is not the only component in your engine's timing system that the industry has been quietly overcharging you to replace. The tensioner pulley, the idler bearing, the water pump, these are the components that get bundled into every timing belt package as non-negotiable. And for 3 of them, there is a parallel story to what you have just learned. A story about a lubrication technique documented in the 1970s that extends the service life of these components significantly. One that has been absent from every service manual published by every major manufacturer since the 1990s.